First, I'm very pleased to be joining you all here in Mexico City at the North American Leaders Summit in what has been a very productive set of meetings among Canada, the United States, and Mexico, where we've discussed a wide range of priorities touching on the economy, on climate change, and of course public security. But tonight I want to give you an important update regarding the Nexus program. And so tonight I am very pleased to say that Canada and the United States have agreed to significantly enhance the Nexus processing applications capacity by 50%. And this is very good news coming out of the pandemic and looking for ways to further accelerate travel between our two countries. Leveraging this program, we're going to be able to put into place a number of measures that will allow us to achieve those goals. Those measures include accelerating the renewals process for those applicants who've already submitted their papers and have put in previously for interviews. Secondly, we are on the American side extending hours at enrollment centers across 12 CBP locations. And then third and finally, what we are doing is putting in place a new streamlined two-step process that will allow Canadian travelers to apply for an interview here on the Canadian side, and then for those who are traveling on to the United States to complete that process at pre-clearance locations. So on this streamlined process, we will roll this out at airports, at 8 airports where there is already pre-clearance by this spring, so this is going to come very quickly. And we have already launched the two-step streamlined process at land ports of entry in Fort Erie, as well as the Kingston Thousand Islands land port of entry. And at that particular location, the process is as simple as showing up, doing your interview on the Canadian side, and then carrying on to the American side of the port of entry to complete the American interview process. So it can be done inside of an hour and very efficiently at non-peak times. Finally, I just want to say, before I take your questions, that we want to express our gratitude to our American officials and counterparts. And in particular, I want to thank the officials at CBP. I also want to thank Secretary Mayorkas, with whom I've got a very strong relationship. And I also want to thank the CBSA, who have really been working at concrete and tangible solutions to not only, again, reboot this program to pre-COVID processing application capacity, but to significantly expand it by 50%. So this is a win-win for Canada and the United States. It's good for Canadian travelers, it's good for the economy on both sides, and it's certainly another good, I think, piece of news coming out of NALS. And I'm happy to take your questions.
Just a question about how the American interview you're talking about is taking place at U.S. Customs pre-clearance. Do you have to be taking a flight to the U.S. to do that interview?
That's right. And so what's flexible about that is that Canadian travelers will be able to decide when it is they choose to make travel plans going on to the United States. So in very simple terms, what this means, Steve, is you'll show up on the day that you are flying out, and you can get your interview done prior to your flight, then carry on to pre-clearance, complete the interview process there. But yes, you're quite right, you do have to be carrying on to the United States.
Minister, can you explain, now that there's a deal, or at least a workaround, I guess, in place, can you explain why it is that it got to this stage? What exactly is Canada's problem with the status quo? Why was there such reluctance to expand the availability of these spaces from a Canadian perspective? What exactly, what's the
nub of it?
The nexus of it, if you will.
I like the double entendre. Well, look, in the first place, I think the obvious answer to the question as to why it took some time to really dig into the issues around operations was because of COVID-19. And the fact that both countries had to put in place significant health measures which saw all personal travel stop, and the need to come up with new innovative ways in which we could keep pathways that were vital to our economies going, did definitely have an impact, not only on Nexus, but on every avenue of immigration. And so coming out of pandemic and being in the strong position that we are in right now, we always knew that Nexus was a program that benefited Canadians and Americans and alike, and in particular, those communities that straddle the border. And so that was one of the main reasons why we really had to dig into the issue and make sure that the program coming back was fit for the moment that we find ourselves in. With regards to the second part of your question, I think it's great news that we're able to bring this program back with 50% additional processing applications capacity. Why? Because the demand is there, because people see this as a way to accelerate their travel in a flexible, seamless, and efficient way. And that's precisely what the vision of this program is. So this is truly a win-win, and I think, frankly, the additional time that it took to get to this result was worth the wait. Because what this means now is that with an additional 50%, this is not just an incremental bump up. We're talking about a rather significant enhancement of the overall processing of applications, which is good news for both countries.